there's a lot of fear around artificial intelligence taking people's jobs. It's not going to do that. It's going to make jobs more efficient. So integrating it into businesses is quite tricky. You've got to know what you're doing. But when you do that, it can reduce workflow. If you're looking to build a business where you're leveraging your own time for money, you're going to hit a ceiling because there's only one of you as an entrepreneur. If you work in an industry or a job and you've been around for a number of years, and the barrier to entry in terms of cash realization is fairly low, I'd say just go for it.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
You know your salt and you know your worth and you've got the network, back yourself.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Ethan Cassiotis, and today I have an awesome guest. His name is Phil Chell, and he has 15 years domain experience in the construction sector in the UK, rising to board level positions in some of the UK's biggest flat roofing supply companies. He has grown Hera Waterproofing from £0 to £2 million turnover in 2 years. And he also created an AI integrations company within a year. And they now have global clients thanks to promoting the company on several podcasts. Welcome, Phil Chell, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. It's a pleasure.
Welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be a great podcast for everyone watching and listening today. Now, you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, introduce yourself by telling us more about you and your journey.
Thanks, Anthony. So my name's Phil Chell. I'm the CEO and founder of two businesses. The main one is Hera Waterproofing Limited, which is a flat roofing supply and design company based in the UK. We operate solely in the UK market. I started that business 2 years ago from spending sort of 15 years in the industry working for other people. Climbed the corporate ladder to board level positions, and just got to the point where I think there's a better way of doing things. Was fortunate enough to have built a property portfolio outside of work, and decided to sort of leverage that, liquidate that to start the business, and we've never looked back since. But when I started the business, I started on my own. The last company I worked at, there was 120 people in the company. I had 10 direct reports. So going from having a big team of people with structure and processes in place to being on my own was quite difficult. And that was around the dawn of sort of AI coming into the public conscience. It had been around for a while until then, but it was timed quite well, really, that the main sort of AI people will recognise is ChatGPT. That launched, GPT 3.5 launched around about the same time as the Hera started. And I started using that and a few other tools off the shelf just to sort of make my life easier within the business, from, like I say, having a large team of people around me to being on my own. I sort of started using AI to make my job easier. We then started building some integrations into the business, me and a developer that I know. And I started showing them to clients, and they were sort of asking us, well, could you do that for us as well to make our lives easier? And then from that, we've then created a separate business, which is called Sheeran AI. And as you mentioned, we've now gone global. We have international clients, not just in the construction sector, because that was the domain we started off in, because it was the market that we knew. And we've realized that now we've built structured processes into that business, they're easily transferable into other markets. And yeah, Sheeran's been trading for about a year now. We've launched Hera's fantastic. I love the business. But I kind of always knew that would be a success because I've done it before. Launching a business into a market that I was new into has been probably one of my proudest achievements, really. So there's a sort of potted history on sort of me and sort of my entrepreneurial journey for the last couple of years.
Yeah, nice, mate. Well done for taking the leap, so to speak, and doing the first business based on what you know, and obviously got a lot of success, which is great. And now ventured the AI space, which is game changing for a lot of businesses now as well. And seeing you doing some awesome stuff, obviously, with a lot of clients there as well. So I'm sure it's going to be great for what we're going to be delving into today. Obviously, let's talk a little bit more around the business side, then we'll delve into the AI stuff, I'm sure, much deeper. So obviously what you were doing, I'm sure you had that big company that had over 100 employees. There's a lot of other companies doing that. You've come new into the game. there's somewhat of a saturated market there, right? And you got to put your
Mm.
fork down and go, we want business here, right, to grow this business. So
Yeah.
what tips can you give to growing a business like in a saturated market?
I think anybody in their career that is is worth their salt and knows that they are and has a network of people around them, it's possible to do what we've done. Um, so what I did was I was quite senior in my last company, as you can imagine, at board level. So I had to be very careful in what I did, in sort of how I went around and set the business up. I did it very slowly, very quietly. There was sort of 8 key clients that I spoke to in the background and just said, "Look, I'm thinking about doing this. Will you come with me?" And out of those 8 people, every single one of them have come with us. Um, so I think if you have a very, very strong network of people that are used to working with you, then that was a huge important factor in us being able to set the business up and get going, is to leverage that network. Especially these days, the power of LinkedIn as well. I mean, I've got something like 10,000 connections on LinkedIn. It's very easy to build a good network these days. So that was really key to us, is leveraging your existing network and just being able to have sort of honest conversation with clients. And also in saturated markets, what you tend to find is there are a lot of sort of incumbent mindsets. Is we've always done it that way, so we're going to continue to do it that way. Hera trades very differently to a lot of our competitors. So we do things in a very, very different way. I've said this quite a lot on podcasts. Some of our competitors are quite difficult to trade with. And what I mean by that is they're quite difficult to buy things from, which is the main thing that these businesses do. Is they sell things to you. They're very difficult to transact with. We're not. We're really, really easy. And that's one thing that if you speak to any of our clients, they love about us, that we're dead easy to work with. So it's about spotting opportunities like that. What is it that the incumbents that aren't doing that you could possibly do? And whilst it was very difficult and stressful going out on my own, very lonely to begin with as well, the flip side of that and the benefit of that is you can be really sort of lean and quick thinking, and you can move fast, and you don't have to get approval to do things and go to board and things. So you can operate in a much more lean and agile way compared to some of these bigger businesses. So I don't think people should be frightened about going into saturated markets. If anything, you should see it as an opportunity.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Some great points there. Like, yeah, I've heard other people say as well, right? Like, if there's competition, there's money to be made, right, in that area there. So it's actually
Absolutely, yeah.
it's a good thing, right? Rather than doing something in a completely new field that no one's ever done before, where you don't know what's going on. So it's a great mindset to have, and yeah, leveraging
Mm.
your network, in those relationships, are really important. You mentioned an interesting point there around LinkedIn, right? I've got thousands as well. You said you got about 10,000 or so. Um, what do you think? Because obviously the relationships you had for a long time, that's very different. And that's all ideally what we want to do. We want to build long-term relationships, and then you've got that trust, and then you can, obviously work together in whatever way, whether it's they're coming on board with you or partnering or whatever there. If you're building these new relationships in your network in LinkedIn, like, is there any tips that you can give on building those and leveraging those, right? To the network as well.
Yeah, yeah. So in the market we operate, we sell flat roofing materials, right? Which isn't interesting. It's not sexy. It's quite boring. Let's be quite honest about that. We do some cool things with it, and we offer superb guarantees and support to our clients. But that's not really interesting. And most of our competitors, they market themselves by saying, "Look how great our products are." When the reality of it is that everybody's products are pretty much the same. So what we tend to do is I took a lot of I stole a lot of ideas from people like Apple and Red Bull. So if you look at Red Bull, when Red Bull do a marketing campaign, Red Bull never advertise their drink. In the UK, they have one TV campaign where they talk about the drink. The majority of Red Bull's marketing is done away from that. So most of their social media is about surfing or mountain biking or skydiving or motocross. Nothing to do with the actual drink. They sponsor a Formula One team at the end of the day. Never mentions the drink. So that's how we market our business. I do a lot of personal marketing, as in things like this. We talk about social value. We talk about artificial intelligence. We never mentioned. I never once advertised products or projects that we've completed, because if everybody's doing the same, you're just going to be one other voice in a market that in a market that people aren't actually listening to. So you've got to think about how can you market your business in a unique way, and that's what I do on LinkedIn. The latest post I put on was about I get my best ideas, and I'm not sat in my office, and I'm not sat around a boardroom table. I get my best ideas when I'm on a beach with my family, or if I'm in the gym or on mountain bike, because I'm a huge mountain biking fan. And I posted my last LinkedIn post was about me mountain biking. It was 11 o'clock on a Monday morning last week, and I went out for a ride, and I came up with loads of ideas, and I put it on LinkedIn. Never once mentioned the product, never once mentioned the company. Just talked about what I'm doing to sort of generate ideas within the business, and again, it got loads of sort of interaction on LinkedIn. So again, try and think differently as to way that you market your company. Don't go down the route of this is the product and service we offer. Nobody's interested. Try and think of different things to do.
Yeah, love it, mate. And yeah, people buy for emotion and reinforce with logic, right? So you got to invoke that emotional side and that fun element, right, about what you do there. So I
Yeah.
love those tips. Really cool. So let's delve into the AI stuff now, which is definitely the big topic right now
Yeah.
that it's building up over time. So obviously you've got an AI integration company. So do you want to first share like how AI integrations are really game changing, for businesses?
Yeah. The AI market is a really interesting one because if you ask most people in any walk of life what they think of artificial intelligence, you get a mixed view, but people are often scared of it because they don't understand it, or people's go-to default position is Chat GPT because it's the one piece of AI that everybody knows. It's a relatively small part of the market, that is. Well, it's a really small part of what's out there and what can be done. Um, and it isn't integratable in a business, ChatGPT. In its current form, you can't plug it into a business as it is. You can download the desktop version or have the app, and you can ask it questions and things. It's getting better. It has memory functions, but you can't ask it on its in and of itself to go and do something good in your business. You've got to know how to work with it in the back end to integrate it into companies, which is what we do. And even then, when you do that, the version that's off the shelf is not the same as what you get access to. It works very differently. So integrating it into businesses is quite tricky. You've got to know what you're doing. But when you do that, it can reduce workflows and time by about 90%. We've got it down to. And I use this example all the time on podcasts because it's the one that resonates most with people. Is we get a large volume of emails into the business with orders on, and we've now started using it for external billing as well. So, but with internal orders, we could get 10 emails a day with orders on for jobs. And one of those purchase orders could have 15 line items on it of various quantities of each product. To take that information from an email, from either in a PDF attachment or an Excel spreadsheet, our team are manually inputting that into Zero Hour account software. And it could take an hour to do one. It could take 2 hours to do one because they could be quite complicated things. Our artificial intelligence now within the business, the email comes into the company, regardless of the format it's in, whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's a PDF, whether it's in the body of the email, and it collates that data and then it automatically transfers it into Zero, builds the draft invoice, attaches the purchase order or the information to that document, and then we then get a WhatsApp and it says this order's ready to process. Are you happy with it? So we then check it's accurate, and then we say yes or no, and we have to, whether we have to manually adjust it, or whatever. And I think that's a really good example as well of where there's a lot of fear around artificial intelligence taking people's jobs. It's not going to do that. It's going to make jobs more efficient. And there's a thing in the industry called HITL, human in the loop, which is a check you always have to have in stuff like this at the beginning and at the end. So there's always going to be an element of human interaction within that. But what it does do is it makes businesses much, much more efficient.
Yeah, I love it. It's massive, right? 90% reduction. Like when you think about, however much a wage is for that person or, everything like
Yeah,
that. Obviously there will be the investment in that cost, but the ROI on that. The payback, so to speak, will be relatively quick, depending on how much bit work's being done, and then it's and then it just helps you from there, and it reduces a lot of errors and stuff, right, as well, because
Yeah.
that's also potential, with human error. There's no point in doing those lower level tasks if you can automate things as much as possible. So
And what it does then is it allows people in the business, the founder, whoever it might be, to go and do what they're best at. I'm best at marketing the business and selling. My job is let's be honest, put money in the till. That's what my job is. And that it allows me to do that rather than sitting on a desk processing things. It does it automatically. So it allows people to go out and do the things that or not only things they're better, the things they enjoy. I love this part of the business and getting out and meeting new people and talking about what we do. And if it wasn't for that, ironically, if we didn't have the other business, it wouldn't allow me to do that. So it really just free up people's time to then go out and do the more important things for their business.
yeah, I love it. And so, as a starting point, right, for people, ideally they're measuring, I guess, what they're doing, in their business now. So for each tasks, they know roughly how much time is being taken or effort or whatever like that, or where there's pain points, in
Hmm.
spots in the business, and then going, okay, then I guess someone like yourselves come in and go, let's look at this, and going, yeah, we can do something here, and this will then create this result. Is that a fair sort of starting point for people to sort of
Yeah.
think about this area? Yeah.
Yeah, if they talk to us or any other companies like us, that what we tend to do is we do a thing called a discovery call, which is a couple of hours in deep dive into the business, and we look at sort of what are the three main pain points you've got at the moment, or what are the three wishes that you think you could get out of this. And I encourage people to think like really crazy thoughts with what this stuff could do, because my whole attitude to this is because I'm I'm not technical. I'm not a programmer. I don't code. I don't look at the AI backend. I do a lot of the front end stuff and I do a lot of the vision and the strategy, but I don't actually create any of it myself. We have a team of people that do that, and it's really helpful for that because what I tend to do is I'll go. Somebody says, "Can we do this?" My automatic answer is yes, it can do that because I'm yet to find something we can't do. Sometimes it might take a bit of time and it might cost a bit more money, but there's nothing we've been asked to do so far that it cannot do. So that's what we do. We sit down, we have a discovery call. People think, right, what's the three biggest difficulties you've got at the moment that you'd like potentially to solve? Or if you could wave a magic wand and get this to do automatically or go away, what would they be? And you'd be surprised actually that by doing that, it frees people to think, well, actually, I wonder if you get to this. And like I say, the majority of the time, it can.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I guess once you're then adjusting these things, right? Like you've got the processes, it's put in the system. It's more around, okay, what's the next level to that, right? So how can we then build on this, do more? Because I think it's probably moving, like you said, to be people that are more strategic thinkers or managers and leaders, right, in a business in
Mm.
here. So no matter what level or position you're at now, it's about those other skills, right? About understanding something well and then using an AI to do a lot of the legwork, but you're the one sort of managing and strategizing on that, right? And checking it and then putting it forward in that way.
Yeah, and the market's moving so fast as well. There are new products coming into the market. And when I say products, what I mean is that when people talk about being an AI business the way we are, we don't own the models that we use. Um, there are different levels to the AI market, and you've got what are known as frontier models, which is the basis of all this technology. So companies that people might have heard of, OpenAI is the biggest one, which owns ChatGPT. They're the ones that we work with. We do it with a few others, but that's the main one. There's a company called Anthropic. You've got Facebook's Llama, you've got DeepSeek. These are the multi-billion-dollar business that build the actual algorithms and the actual computer science behind the AI. Those businesses are constantly innovating and bringing out new versions of their technology or new ways of using it. And then companies like us then leverage that technology into other businesses. And we're finding that it's like an arms race at the moment between these big businesses. They're all trying to find the next big thing they can bring out to the market to try and take market share from each other. So what we do with all our clients as well is we don't just go, we'll build your product, integrate it, there's the invoice, see you later. We don't do that. We want to work with people long term because you've got to maintain this stuff on a daily basis almost because it can change and new things can come through, or you might have issues with it that need amending. But also there might be a new bit of tech that comes out that we're like, that would be really useful for that business over there. And have you thought about using this? So it's more about creating a long-term partnership with these businesses rather than just building a one-off thing and then sending it to them and saying thank you very much. So I think it's really important for people to realize that this market is moving literally on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love it. And I guess so let's say we've integrated some things here, right? We've done some automated processes, let's call it, with the AI, instead of manually doing it now. I guess like what do you think's the next level? I'd always love to think bigger picture stuff, which I know you talk about the vision thing. Like, where do you
Mm,
think the AI is going, right? Like because this is still game changing now for what
yeah.
obviously you're creating, but where do you think that the future of it is heading? If you had to put a thought out there.
I think we're currently building agents at the moment where you can talk to something. We've got one in Hera. We have an internal agent that does all of our technical thinking for us. I think the future will probably be where instead of it being a human talking to an agent, you'll have agents talking to each other. So you have two AIs talking to each other, which is quite frightening. But Mark Zuckerberg gave an example of I think where he says like, let's say you're in a new city and you want to book a restaurant. You talk to an agent and you tell it, I want a Thai restaurant that's pet friendly, that's got a table at 6 p.m. for 4 people. Rather than you then talking to an AI agent to find that, you tell the agent, it then talks to another restaurant booking agent, and between them they come up with a booking for you. So just things like that. But I just think the way that sort of the integrations we're working on, we're testing at the moment in other elements of our business. Um, it's just it's really really cool. So we've got this thing called computer vision that we do as well. We're just about to roll out fully now, where we can take a photograph of something and we've built an AI model that knows what it's looking at and it can tell us what's wrong with the image. So in our industry, we do a lot of refurbishment projects. So we survey a roof, sorry. Um, Take a photograph of a failed part of the roof, and the AI that we've built knows what's wrong with it because we've trained it, and it then tells us what we need to do to put it right. Um, so it's things like that. There's some really cool things coming through at the moment.
Yeah, I love that because it's basically really about how much information you put in, right? Because you've got the
Yeah,
standard stuff in the chat GPTs and stuff, which is what's on the internet. However, when you can train something with a lot of information on a subject, then it becomes a subject matter expert, basically, right? On
yeah,
that
yeah,
area, and then you can really get something that's very tailored, for your business.
yeah. I think see GPT. There's a misnomer what it stands for. People think it's general purpose technology, and it is a general purpose technology, but that's not what the acronym stands for. It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So the pre-trained bit is that what you've picked up on there. All of these models are pre-trained on huge data sets, like literally every piece of human history is trained into these models. That's why they cost so much money to build. But we're moving away from that. We're moving to smaller models that we're training, that we're training with our own domain data or domain data for clients. And I think what we're also looking at is, we haven't touched on security, and risk of data in this at this point as well, which is a huge part that people talk about. Um, we spoke to one of our clients recently who, as soon as he heard we were working with OpenAI, just flat out refused to work with us because of all the horror stories they'd heard around data going missing. And the irony is that when you don't work with ChatGPT and you work through an API through OpenAI, you automatically keep all your data. It's just part of their terms and conditions. But what we're looking at now is we think the market is going in such a way that models are going to be developed that are small enough to run on a server that you could fit into an office. Because part of the reason why building a frontier model AI business is so expensive is the physical amount of computing power you need to run these models. So without getting too technical, a desktop computer is known has a CPU, which is a small processing unit. These AI models use GPUs, which are huge pieces of technology, but the models are getting so specific now or so small. We think you're going to be able to put them on a physical server and install in a client's office. So going full circle away from server-based infrastructure in IT, gone to cloud-based infrastructure the last sort of 10, 15 years, moving back to server-based infrastructure purely so you can keep your own data safe in a physical location. So yes, there's loads of stuff that's sort of that's moving at the moment, and that's why I say we're not just interested in working with people on one-off projects and one-off integrations, because we're at the forefront of the market. We can see where it's moving, and it allows us to, ensure that the tech we build works on a day-to-day basis, but then also to keep people abreast of the new things that are coming through the market.
Yeah, I love that. And one thing that I've been, talking a lot about with people as well, because I'm always looking at, monetizing business models, things like that, is like solve a problem for yourself, right? Of course,
Yeah.
and you do it. Then that's also likely to be a problem for other people, right? For the industry and things like that. So then potentially the next level is to then monetize that much more, right? For what that
Mhm.
solution is to a market. Is that sort of, I
Yeah.
guess, a simple your thinking, on that as well?
We're a perfect example of that because that's what happened with our businesses, especially in a market that, I've worked in the construction industry for pretty much my entire career, and I don't mean to sort of poo-poo it, but it is antiquated. The way in which this multi-billion pound, multi-billion dollar business model operates is it's antiquated. So there was, we kind of stumbled on the opportunity really because we built them. I built them initially to help me, and then a few forward-thinking people in our industry have gone, that's an amazing idea. Can you do that for us? Or yeah, we can actually. I think it's also important as well if people are thinking about sort of starting businesses and what to do. You've got to understand that if you're looking to build a business where you're leveraging your own time for money, you're going to hit a ceiling because there's only one of you as an entrepreneur. So if you're selling a service or offering some kind of individual one-on-one function, that you're going to get to a point where you're going to top out and that business can't scale. If you want to scale a business, you've got to sell service or product. Um, so that's also something to sort of really think about if people are looking to start businesses. Is like it might be okay to start with to get some money flowing through the door. So an example, this is a friend of mine that's is a building surveyor. So our client's a building surveyor, an architect, and he worked in a big practice in the UK. In fact, I think they're based in Australia. It's a huge multinational company. He wanted to start his own business. And to start with, to get some money generating in the business, he started doing home buyer surveys. I'm not sure what the market's like in Australia, but in the UK, if you buy a house and you get a mortgage on it, the bank that's lending you the money wants to know that what they're leveraging their money against is a suitable asset. So you get someone to go and check the building, and that's what a building survey does in a very basic sort of example. So I said to my friend, just go and start doing those to begin with, because you'll get some cash coming into the business. I said, but don't continue to do them because you'll hit a ceiling of you can only do 10 a month or 12 a month or whatever it is. You need to think bigger than that. I think it's really important with this is company as an example. I helped him set the business up. When you think of a brand of a business, I would never name a company after myself because it looks too small. The friend of mine was going to call it, well, I won't name because it's not fair, but he was going to call it his name, building consultant. It's like, but that's just you. You need to think bigger than that. And that's why our businesses aren't named after me, because you need to think if you ever want to exit a business and you're the sole reason why that business exists, you won't be able to sell it. You've got to, and you have to learn to build the business away from you as a founder as well, which is quite difficult for some people. When you build something and it's your baby, I know a lot of founders that struggled with that because it's them. But for me, it's not about that. It's about building assets to potentially exit from them that have got nothing to do with me.
Yeah, I love that. And that's the real great discussion. I love branding, right? Around like the business brand and the personal brand, because the business brand should definitely be very different naming, right? To anything that's got to do with you, like in that example that you gave. We do all have a personal brand, right? And for example, a very
Yeah,
simple sense is like our LinkedIn profile, is the
yeah,
start of our personal brand, right? We can go to different levels of that. That's different because that's our name, and we can leverage that on multiple businesses. Like you've got two businesses, right, at this time, and
mm,
you're able to leverage that for things, but you wouldn't necessarily, name all your businesses with your name and everything like that to
yeah,
do it. So, but it can definitely be powerful to use, right, to connect to people
yeah.
and everything like that as well. Yeah.
Mm.
So No, I love all this conversation. I guess, do you want to talk about, like, for me, something that's a pain in my existence, right? And I'd love to know from you perspective is around emails, right? I think a lot of people, some people say that emails are like other people's agendas, right? They're not our
Yeah,
agendas in that way. So people can get lost in the emails. And I always thought, um, you know, and I even know I've got a virtual assistant, she helps me things like that, but she's from the Philippines, so not exactly the same, growing
different
up,
time zones.
yeah, different time zones. Hasn't grown up the Australian way, doesn't know the little mannerisms, I'm sure, like the UK
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
and all of that, right? So and that's fine. That's each to their own, right? But then there's a level of like, well, what if I could just, automate or integrate things where all the emails are drafted, they're basically already done, and we could train it, right? To
Mm,
do all of that based on, maybe it's just my previous responses that I've done to emails, or other ways of training things like that, so that we're not spending hours a day on emails where possible, and sort of, yeah, automating that process. So I'd love to know your thoughts around that pain in my existence there.
yeah, it's an interesting one. We don't offer that yet, to be honest. And there's a real reason for that is that I don't think it's just not personal enough. I know you can train them on, language and context and things, but I find that I can tell when I've had an automated email back, so it's not quite there yet. And just to be dead honest, we don't have that skill set to do that. And also, I use my email. This is probably, I'm showing my age now. I use my inbox as like a to-do list. If it's still in there, it means I've still got to do something with it. But again, for me, it comes down to delegation as well. When I first started the business, obviously everything came to me. Whereas, I went away for the Easter break a couple of weeks back. I was away for 2 weeks. I probably responded to two emails. I think probably two or three emails, because we'd set the team up in such a way that things weren't coming to me. And I suppose that we're lucky in that way, because we know we're a fairly decent sized business and we've got people within the company. Um, but yeah, just for me, I think it still needs that personal touch. There are companies out there that do that, as that's their sole business model is email response automation. Like I say, I can tell when they've been done, to be honest. So I don't. That's quite there. And this is what I mean. AI is not going to take people's jobs. You still are always going to need some level of human interaction within that. So it might get better. I'm sure it will get better. But yeah, perhaps I'm showing my age there. I still think that human response is necessary.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, right? And I think you're right. Like, it's a bit, a similar example to that would be around like social media content, right? Because a lot of people will
Yeah.
be like, I'll use ChatGPT, hey, give me a post on this, and then they'll copy and paste it, and you're like, this sounds like an AI, right?
Yeah.
In terms of what they're writing, right? It's the same thing, because then you lose that authenticity element, right? In what's happening.
Mm. Saying that, there's a really good networker AI called Bordy. I mean, you've seen this, Bordy AI, and I've used it a few times. And it basically, you make a phone call to it, you ring it, and you talk to it and it's amazing. And you tell it what you do, and you tell it the kind of people you want to connect with on LinkedIn, and it goes out and finds them and sends you an email and connects you with people, like-minded people on LinkedIn, and it rings you back and talks to you. Um, and it's a really good piece of kit that I've used personally. But the really cool thing about it is that the founders of it, they're an American company. They raised however much money at seed round. The AI itself went and raised the Series A. It went out to investors itself. They told it what to do, obviously, that it did, and they marketed it as though it did it itself. There would have been some level of human interaction, but apparently it did the negotiation with the VC firm around the terms and how much it needed to raise. So that kind of agentic stuff is getting better. So yeah, just as a side, I'd encourage your listeners or viewers just to go and check out Bordy on LinkedIn, because it's a really cool piece of kit.
Yeah. And I think the great point that you're saying is like AI is moving so fast. You want to be around people that understand it and that can tell you about these things, right? Because,
Yeah.
Bordy wasn't around or as popular until recently, right? You know what I mean? That
Mm.
it's come out. And there's going to be more things that come out in the near future going, wow, this is really amazing as well. How can, we use this as an individual tool, or maybe how can we integrate, these tools like what you're doing, into what we're doing
Yeah.
into our business. Yeah.
I think with what people need to understand is that, I mean, I'm old enough to, I was around when the dot-com boom happened in the late 90s, early noughties. Um, I was a teenager then, so I didn't really have a proper job to speak of. I just left college. But I remember being around and thinking it was like a cool thing to see, and you saw, huge businesses come and go and a huge amount of money being made. But what that did do was it set the groundwork for e-commerce effectively. It set the groundwork for, it leveled the playing field in a lot of it. Like the insurance industry was a big one that affected in those days because back in the day in the UK, if you need to get insurance for your car, you got a thing called the Yellow Pages, which is a big, thick telephone directory. And you spend hours ringing these insurance companies, and the prices would be sort of all over the place. The internet just leveled the playing field and said, right, if you want an insurance price, you pretty much know what you're going to pay. So the point of trying to make it is that it was that technology at the time was groundbreaking, and it spawned a lot of industry and it changed the way we operate. Artificial intelligence is like that. The way somebody described it to me is it's not like the dot-com boom. It's like the start of electricity. That's how big it is and how groundbreaking this technology is. And the reason I'm saying this is that regardless of what your business does and what you do and how you operate, you have got to figure out how this stuff's going to change your life because it is going to. It's the toothpaste out the tube. Unfortunately, this stuff is out there, and you've got to get a grasp and understanding of what this is going to do to your company, your life, because it isn't going anywhere. So I think it's dead important to stay abreast of this, and as we've said repeatedly, it is moving at such a pace that things are changing literally day to day. So it's really important to keep up to date with what's going on with it.
Yeah, awesome, mate. So many amazing points, and you shared so much gold with us here today, Phil, and great ways to think differently, right, about things as well, which I think is the most important part, right, of how we do business. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up here today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Um, you've got to back yourself. Simple as that. If you like I said, if you know your salt and you know your worth and you've got the network, back yourself. Because if you work in an industry or a job and you've been around for a number of years and the barrier to entry in terms of cash realization is fairly low, I'd say just go for it. Because when I set Hera up, I knew that if it failed, and I knew it wouldn't fail, but if it did fail, I had enough clout within my industry that I'd get another job working for somebody else. It was just one of those. I had a safety net almost. Um, so you've got to back yourself. Um, you know, life is not a rehearsal, is it? You only get one of them. So, and when you work in these big businesses, they keep a lot of stuff from you. They guard information as around how companies running a business actually isn't that difficult. Well, that might sound like a flippant comment. I don't find it that difficult. If you set the business up in the right way in the beginning and you set some processes and some structure in the business, it's not that difficult. And as I said in another podcast, if anybody out there wants to talk to me about that and what I mean by that, I'm more than happy to sort of offer my time to people. In fact, after this podcast today, I'm going to meet somebody that used to be much more senior than I was in a previous company. And he's reached out and said, I'd love to spend some time with you to understand how you've grown your business. It's quite a humbling thing to hear that was from somebody that was effectively my boss, for me to go and offer them some help. So I love offering help and advice to people. So if anybody wants to reach out to discuss any business ideas or just have a chat, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm easy enough to find. It's Phil.Chell. Sorry, it's just Phil Chell, Philchell on LinkedIn. You'll find me on there. Just drop me a DM and I'm more than happy to chat with people.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Definitely give it a go. It reminds me of, I did the risky thing. I quit my job and started my business the next day with no traction, with a few months of pay in the bank, and backed myself though, right? Exactly like what you
Yeah,
said,
you got to
and
do.
And I think that's what it has. You did a similar thing. You liquidated stuff. You had some cash there. You backed yourself, right? And I think that's what it is. And just keep moving forward because there are going to be
Yeah.
challenges, right? And some
Yeah.
things are easier than others, but getting the right people around you to help, right? Is a great thing. And now you're able to give back, like I do as well, where we help other people, which is always, rewarding and great to do that at the same time, mate. So well done with all of that. And yeah, we
Thank you.
connected, through our networks. I learned about your awesome journey and, from having various sales roles, obviously now being the founder and CEO of Hera Waterproofing and Coron AI. You're an awesome guy, mate. So knowledgeable. You share a lot of great ways, of thinking here today about business, about AI, how to do things differently, to really make a big impact, of people and be successful. So, and I'm sure you'll continue to help, companies integrate AI, into their business operations as well. Yeah, look forward to partnering together. Very grateful that we connected. So Phil, obviously you mentioned the LinkedIn side, but apart from that, how can people find you, get in contact with you as well?
Instagram as well is the only the social platform I'm on. I think it's Philip Chell on Instagram. But yeah, check out my Instagram. There's mainly photographs of mountain bikes and food. Because that's my two main things I enjoy doing outside of work. But yeah, so LinkedIn and Instagram is the best place to reach me on.
Nice. And do you want to share any websites or anything like that for
Oh,
people as
sorry.
well?
Yeah. Well, if you go to it's chironai.co.uk, so CHIRONAI.co.uk. There's an info email you can send stuff to, and then Hera Waterproofing.co.uk. Again, there's an inquiry section on either website. So please feel free to reach out for either business on those, and we'll pick that up.
Yeah, awesome. Well, definitely check out Phil there. LinkedIn is the main one, Instagram as well as the websites, Current AI and Hera Waterproofing. And yeah, have a chat. Never know where it will lead, and see if you can, get some game changing things happening into your business and just thinking differently. I think and integrating AI is just so important now. Where we are in life and how the market's moving. Yeah, it's been a pleasure interviewing you, mate, and thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks very much. Good to speak to you, mate. Cheers.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Ethan Cassiotis, or visit my website, ethancassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you can reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.